Marcus Williams sat at his drafting table, the dim light of his desk lamp casting a warm glow over the scattered sketches and blueprints that surrounded him. The air was thick with the scent of fresh ink and paper, a comforting reminder of his passion for architecture. Each stroke of his pencil brought to life a vision he had nurtured for months. A groundbreaking community center designed to foster connection and creativity in a neighborhood that had long been overlooked. Yet, despite the excitement that surged through him as he worked, a nagging doubt lingered in the back of his mind, fueled by the whispers of his colleagues. "Marcus, are you sure about this design? It seems a bit unconventional," came the hesitant voice of Daniel, a fellow architect who leaned casually against the doorframe. His tone was nonchalant, but Marcus recognized the underlying skepticism. He forced a smile, though inside his heart sank. "Unconventional is what this community needs, Daniel. We've been stuck in a cycle of the same old designs. This place deserves something fresh," Marcus replied, trying to infuse confidence into his words. He could feel Daniel's gaze lingering on his sketches, assessing them with a judgment that had become all too familiar. "Sure, but you know how the firm is. They prefer safe choices," Daniel said, his voice dripping with an insidious kind of pity. "Just be careful. You don't want to overreach." Marcus bit back a retort, knowing full well that his race played a significant role in how his work was perceived. In a world where traditional designs were often celebrated, his innovative ideas were dismissed as too risky, too ambitious. He turned back to his sketches, determination boiling beneath the surface. He would prove them wrong. Days later, the prestigious design competition loomed ahead, and Marcus clutched his portfolio tightly as he entered the competition hall. The space buzzed with architects, each showcasing their projects with an air of confidence that made Marcus's heart race. He approached the judges' table with a lump in his throat, presenting his design for the community center. Their expressions were unreadable as they flipped through his pages, and for a fleeting moment, hope ignited within him. "I can see you've put a lot of thought into this," one of the judges remarked, a middle-aged woman with glasses perched on her nose. But before Marcus could respond, another judge, a man with a neatly trimmed beard, interjected. "It's a bold approach, yes, but perhaps a little too bold for our current climate," he said, his tone dismissive. Marcus felt the weight of their indifference settle on his shoulders, heavy and suffocating. As the judges moved on to the next submission, a traditional design by Jake Thompson, a well-known white architect, Marcus felt a sting of disappointment wash over him. Jake's project, a safe bed adorned with the familiar columns and arches, drew enthusiastic nods from the judges. The contrast was stark. While Jake basked in praise, Marcus felt invisible, his work overshadowed by the biases that permeated the industry. Later, Marcus found himself wandering the streets, the vibrant city around him fading into a blur. The excitement of the competition had been replaced by a profound sense of loss. He leaned against a brick wall, staring blankly at the ground, when he heard a familiar voice. "Marcus!" It was Sarah, his mentor, who approached with a concerned expression. "I saw the competition. How did it go?" Marcus sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Not great. They didn't even give my design a second thought. I think they just see a black architect and assume I'm not capable." Sarah's eyes softened, and she placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "You know that's not true. Your talent is undeniable. This industry is riddled with biases, but you can't let them define your worth. Resilience is key. You have to keep pushing forward." "I don't know, Sarah. It's hard to keep fighting when they won't even look at my work," he admitted, frustration spilling over. "Then let them underestimate you," she replied firmly. "Use that as fuel. Your time will come. Just remember, every setback is a setup for a comeback. Don't lose sight of your vision." As Marcus listened to her words, a flicker of determination ignited within him. He couldn't let this moment define him. He would rise above the biases and prove, not just to them, but to himself, that he belonged in this space. Marcus found himself standing amidst the throng of architects at the networking event, his heart beating in a swift rhythm of anxiety and anticipation. The venue was a bustling gallery, adorned with sleek designs and vibrant displays, showcasing the work of some of the most esteemed names in the industry. As he moved through the crowd, he could feel the weight of their gazes, some glancing dismissively, while others engaged in animated discussions about accolades and past victories. "Look, there's Jake Thompson," a voice exclaimed, laughter punctuating the air. Marcus turned and spotted Jake, the very architect whose traditional designs had overshadowed his own in the recent competition. Jake stood surrounded by a group of admirers, regaling them with tales of his latest projects. Marcus felt a knot tightening in his stomach. The conversations around him seemed to reinforce an unspoken hierarchy, one that he was not a part of. "Hey, Marcus," a friendly voice broke through his reverie. It was Sarah, his mentor, her presence a comforting anchor. "You made it. How are you holding up?" "Just trying to blend in," Marcus replied, forcing a smile. "But it feels like I'm wearing a neon sign that says outsider." Sarah's expression softened. "It's a tough crowd, but remember why you're here. You have the talent and the vision that this industry needs. Don't let their biases dim your light." Marcus nodded, but the unease lingered. As he mingled, he couldn't escape the feeling that his skin color was a barrier, an invisible wall that separated him from the accolades and recognition that others effortlessly received. He overheard snippets of conversations, phrases like traditional aesthetics and real innovation, which felt like veiled criticisms of his own work. Later that evening, as he returned home, Marcus opened his laptop to unwind. However, a notification caught his eye, a post on a popular architecture forum. Curiosity piqued. He clicked on it, only to find a scathing critique of his recent design submission. The words stung like a personal attack, each sentence dripping with condescension. Marcus's design lacks the sophistication that is expected in today's competitive landscape, one comment read. "It's great to see diversity, but we shouldn't sacrifice quality for it." Marcus's heart sank. He had poured his soul into that design, only to see it dismissed so casually. Anger and frustration coursed through him, but beneath that lay a deep-seated sense of inadequacy. "What am I doing wrong?" he muttered to himself, running a hand through his hair. Just then his phone buzzed. It was a text from Sarah. "Remember, every setback is a setup for a comeback. Don't let this shake your confidence. You have something special to offer, and there's a competition coming up that focuses on innovation and diversity. Consider entering." The words ignited a flicker of determination within him. "I'll show them," he whispered, his resolve crystallizing. He needed to prove to himself and to the world that he belonged in this space. The next day, Marcus sat at his drafting table, surrounded by sketches and materials. As he focused on a new design, a knock echoed through his apartment. He opened the door to find Leah standing there, a fellow architect he had met briefly at an earlier event. Her bright smile brought a wave of warmth. "Hey, I saw your work online. I loved it," she said, stepping inside. "I know it's tough out there, but I think we could create something amazing together. Want to collaborate on the upcoming competition?" Marcus was taken aback by her enthusiasm, but felt a rush of hope. "Really? You think we could?" "Absolutely. Your ideas are fresh and innovative. I believe we can bring something unique to the table," Leah replied, her eyes sparkling with excitement. As they began to brainstorm, Marcus felt a spark of creativity reignite within him. Leah's belief in his talent felt like a breath of fresh air, clearing away the remnants of doubt that had clouded his mind. They bounced ideas off each other, sketching and laughing, their partnership transforming the atmosphere from one of isolation to collaboration. "Let's push the boundaries, Marcus," Leah encouraged, her energy infectious. "We can make something that not only stands out but also speaks to the need for diversity in design." "Yeah, let's do it," Marcus replied, a newfound determination fueling his spirit. Together, they dove into the project, ready to challenge the norms and fight against the biases that threatened their dreams. In that moment, he realized that he was not alone in this battle. He had found an ally. Marcus and Leah were ensconced in the small studio they had rented for their latest design project, the only light emanating from a single desk lamp that flickered with the exhaustion of their late-night efforts. The walls were plastered with sketches, blueprints, and mood boards, a tangible representation of their ambition. The air was thick with creativity and the scent of takeout containers strewn about, remnants of their marathon brainstorming sessions. "Can you believe how far we've come?" Leah said, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm as she pointed at their latest iteration of the design. "This could really change the way people see community spaces." Marcus nodded, feeling a blend of exhaustion and excitement surge through him. "I know. This isn't just a project, it's a statement. We're not just architects, we're innovators." He stepped back to take in the entire layout, their ideas coalescing into a powerful vision that broke from traditional constraints. They worked together seamlessly, exchanging ideas with an ease that felt almost electric. Leah's enthusiasm was infectious, and Marcus found himself buoyed by her unwavering belief in their vision. As night turned into early morning, they pushed through fatigue, each sketch and note a testament to their shared commitment. However, just as they thought they were nearing completion, Marcus's phone buzzed on the table, breaking the creative flow. He glanced at the message and felt a knot tighten in his stomach. It was from an old colleague, one he had thought was an ally. "Jake's been talking behind your back," it read. "He says you're unqualified and your work is just a gimmick." Anger surged within Marcus, a heat radiating through his body. "Can you believe this?" he exclaimed, shoving the phone into Leah's hands. "Jake is spreading lies about me. He can't stand that I'm trying to make a name for myself." Leah took a deep breath, her brow furrowing as she read the message. "Marcus, I know this is hard to hear, but don't let it derail you. Channel that anger into our work. Let's show him what you're truly capable of." Marcus clenched his jaw, feeling the weight of systemic bias pressing down on him. "It's just so frustrating. I pour my heart and soul into my designs, and people like Jake are just waiting for me to fail." Leah stepped closer, her expression softening. "I understand, but remember why we're doing this. It's bigger than him. It's about proving that we belong in this space, that your talent shines regardless of what others say." Her words resonated with him. He took a deep breath and nodded, letting the anger transform into determination. "You're right. Let's finish this project and make it unforgettable." As they dove back into their work, their synergy intensified, each sketch and model a reflection of their resilience. They were not merely competing for a title. They were rewriting the narrative of what it meant to be an architect in a field that often overlooked voices like Marcus's. The day of the competition arrived with a mix of excitement and anxiety swirling in Marcus's stomach. He stood in front of the grand hall, the venue buzzing with fellow competitors and industry veterans. The atmosphere felt electric, charged with anticipation. As he and Leah prepared to present their project, he could feel the weight of every judgmental gaze. "Just remember," Leah whispered, squeezing his shoulder, "we've worked hard for this. Focus on the vision we created together." With a deep breath, Marcus stepped onto the stage, Leah beside him. The judges sat in a semicircle, their expressions unreadable. As they unveiled their design, the room fell into a hush, the only sound the rustle of paper as he flipped through the presentation. "This design isn't just about aesthetics," Marcus began, his voice steady despite the tremors of nervousness. "It's about community, accessibility, and reimagining how we interact with our environment. We wanted to create a space where everyone feels welcome." As he spoke, he noticed subtle nods and murmurs of approval among the judges. He locked eyes with Leah, who smiled encouragingly, and he felt a surge of confidence. The project was alive, breathing with the energy of their shared dreams. When they concluded, the applause that erupted felt like a balm to his frayed nerves. The judges exchanged glances, and whispers of admiration rippled through the crowd. For the first time, Marcus felt a sense of belonging wash over him, a flicker of hope that perhaps he was exactly where he was meant to be. As the crowd murmured with anticipation, Marcus lingered at the edge of the stage, his heart racing in rhythm with the applause that erupted around him. He had poured his soul into this project, and yet an unsettling feeling gnawed at him. He glanced over at Leah, who was beaming, her eyes sparkling with joy. They had done this together, but as he soaked in the moment, He overheard a group of judges murmuring nearby. Can you imagine the headlines if a black architect wins this? It would be a significant step forward for diversity, one judge said, his tone laced with apprehension. Sure, but we have to ensure the integrity of the competition. It can't be just about representation, another replied, his brows furrowed in concern. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. He had fought tooth and nail against the biases that plagued the industry, and yet here they were, discussing him as if he were merely a token in their game. He shook his head, trying to dismiss the sting of their words. He was more than a statistic. He was a talented architect, and he had proven that through his work. Marcus, come on, let's celebrate, Leah called, her voice bright and inviting. She was already surrounded by supporters, her joy contagious. Despite the lingering doubts, he forced a smile and joined her, hoping to drown out the whispers. As the announcement drew near, the air crackled with excitement. Marcus's palms were sweaty, and he wiped them against his pants, trying to calm his racing heart. The head judge stepped forward to deliver the results, a broad smile on his face. And the winners of this year's competition are Marcus Williams and Leah Thompson. The crowd erupted into applause, and for a moment, Marcus could hardly comprehend the words. The cheers washed over him, a wave of validation that he desperately sought. They had done it. They had won. Leah grabbed his arm, shaking him with excitement. We did it. I can't believe it. Her laughter rang through the air, and Marcus felt a warmth spread through his chest. Yet, as the crowd continued to cheer, a whisper of doubt returned. He glanced around, feeling slightly detached from the euphoria surrounding him. The applause felt like it was for something more significant than just their design. It was for a narrative that he was still trying to understand. Are you okay? Leah asked, noticing his distant expression. Yeah, just processing everything, he replied, forcing a smile. It's a lot, you know. I get it. You've worked so hard for this. You deserve every bit of this recognition, she reassured him, squeezing his hand. As they made their way through the crowd, congratulations poured in from every direction. Yet, amidst the jubilation, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider. He felt like he was standing on the precipice of something monumental, but the ground beneath him felt unstable. Suddenly, a well-dressed woman approached them, her expression bright with enthusiasm. Marcus, Leah, I'm from Architectural Digest. We'd love to feature your story in our next issue. This one is big news. Marcus's heart raced again, but this time it was a mix of excitement and anxiety. A feature, he echoed, trying to comprehend what that meant for him. Yes, we want to highlight your journey and your innovative design. It's an inspiring story, she continued, her eyes gleaming with genuine interest. Wow, that sounds amazing, Leah said, her excitement evident. But as the woman continued to speak, Marcus felt a familiar tension rise within him. What angle are you thinking? He asked, his voice steady yet cautious. The woman paused, her brow furrowing slightly. Well, the focus will be on your achievements as a black architect, especially in a traditionally white-dominated industry. It's a powerful narrative. Marcus felt a knot tighten in his stomach. So, it's about my race then? He asked, trying to keep his tone neutral. Not just your race. It's about your talent and perseverance too, but that element adds depth to the story, she said, her enthusiasm unwavering. He glanced at Leah, who seemed excited at the prospect. I just want to make sure the focus is on our work and not just the color of my skin, he replied, a hint of trepidation in his voice. Absolutely. Talent first, the woman assured him, but he sensed an underlying current that made him uneasy. As the celebration continued around him, Marcus couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding mixed with hope. He had achieved his dream, yet the journey ahead felt fraught with complexities he hadn't anticipated. He was on the brink of recognition, but at what cost? Would he be seen as an architect first, or would he always be defined by the color of his skin? Lost in thought, he stepped away from the crowd momentarily, seeking clarity. The echoes of applause faded, replaced by the quiet hum of his own uncertainties, as he grappled with the implications of his victory and what it meant for his future in an industry still riddled with biases. In the days following the competition, Marcus Williams found himself catapulted into the public eye. His victory alongside Leah had sparked a whirlwind of interest, and the media was eager to tell his story. Interviews piled up, and invitations to speak at various events flooded his inbox. He had always dreamed of being recognized for his talent, but now, as he sat in front of a camera for an interview, he felt a mixture of pride and trepidation. Marcus, how does it feel to be the first Black architect to win this prestigious competition? The interviewer asked, her pen poised over a notepad, ready to capture every word. It feels incredible, but it's also a heavy responsibility, Marcus replied, his voice steady. I hope that my success can inspire others in the community who may not believe they have a place in this industry. As the interview progressed, Marcus spoke passionately about his vision for inclusive architecture, but beneath his enthusiasm lurked the undercurrent of backlash. Social media was rife with comments from those who felt threatened by his success. He found himself scrolling through platforms late at night, coming across derogatory remarks questioning his qualifications and insinuating that his win was merely a product of affirmative action rather than merit. Look at this, Marcus said one evening, turning his laptop towards Leah, who was sitting across from him in their makeshift workspace. They're saying I only won because of my race. Leah frowned, her expression turning serious. Don't let them get to you, Marcus. You know your work speaks for itself. You've put in the hours, the creativity, and the passion. You earned this. Despite her encouragement, the weight of the criticism lingered. The moment of triumph began to feel tainted by the negativity swirling around him. It was during a follow-up networking event that Marcus's frustration came to a head. He spotted Jake Thompson across the room, surrounded by a group of admirers. As he approached, he felt the tension in his chest tighten. Marcus, congratulations on your win, Jake said, a forced smile plastered on his face. But, it's not like you did it all on your own. Marcus clenched his fists, his anger simmering just beneath the surface. What do you mean by that? He asked, his voice low but steady. I just think that sometimes these competitions focus too much on diversity, Maybe next time, they'll look for actual talent, Jake replied, his tone dripping with condescension. Actual talent? You think I didn't work hard for this? Marcus stepped closer, feeling the heat of the moment. I deserve to be here, Jake. I put in the same effort, if not more, than anyone else in this room. Jake shrugged, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. Sure, but some people just have an easier path. Marcus took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. You don't get to diminish my achievements. If anything, I'm here to challenge the status quo that people like you represent. Feeling a surge of determination, Marcus decided to channel his experiences and frustrations into something constructive. He returned home that night and began drafting an open letter, a piece that would not only address the systemic racism he faced, but also resonate with others who felt marginalized in the architectural field. Days later, he published the letter online, and it quickly gained traction, sparking conversations and drawing support from a diverse array of voices. We need to have these discussions, he wrote. The architecture industry has a long way to go in recognizing and valuing diverse talent. It's time we change the narrative and create space for everyone. As the responses poured in, Marcus felt a newfound sense of purpose. He was no longer just a solitary figure battling against prejudice. He was part of a larger movement advocating for equity and diversity in architecture. The weight of his victory began to feel lighter, transformed into an opportunity to uplift others. In that moment of clarity, he realized that his platform could be used for more than just personal recognition. It could be a catalyst for change. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow across the panel discussion stage, Marcus Williams took a deep breath, feeling the weight of anticipation pressing against his chest. He was seated alongside industry titans, including Jake Thompson, the very architect who had once overshadowed him and perpetuated the doubts that haunted his career. The auditorium buzzed with excitement, filled with aspiring architects and seasoned professionals eager to hear their insights. Yet, beneath the surface, an undercurrent of tension pulsed through the room. Marcus could sense it in the way Jake's jaw tightened every time their eyes met. Let's start with the importance of diversity in architecture, the moderator said, gesturing toward Marcus. Marcus, you've become a prominent voice in advocating for a more inclusive industry. What do you think is essential for fostering true change? Marcus stood, feeling the warmth of the audience's gaze. Thank you. Diversity isn't just a checkbox. It's a necessity. When we bring different perspectives into our designs, we create spaces that resonate with the communities they serve. Architecture should reflect the diversity of the society we live in. Jake shifted in his seat, his irritation palpable. While I agree that diversity is important, we must also consider that not every design can cater to every demographic. Sometimes, we have to prioritize quality over representation, he interjected, his voice dripping with condescension. Marcus could feel the crowd's eyes narrow, waiting for his response. With all due respect, Jake, quality should never come at the expense of representation. When marginalized voices are excluded, we lose out on innovative ideas that could redefine our spaces and communities, he replied, his tone steady yet firm. The discussion continued, with Marcus articulating his vision for the future of architecture. However, as the conversation shifted, Jake seized an opportunity to undermine Marcus's credibility. It's easy to talk about diversity when you've just won a competition, but let's not forget the years of hard work and experience that real architects bring to the table, he said, his tone dismissive. The audience murmured, a ripple of discontent spreading through the room. Marcus felt a surge of anger, but forced himself to remain composed. He was determined not to let Jake's condescension derail his message. The Q&A session followed, and the atmosphere crackled with tension. A young architect, a woman of color with bright eyes and a fierce determination, stood up, clutching her microphone as if it were a lifeline. I have a question for Jake, she said, her voice steady yet firm. In light of recent conversations about your past, can you explain why so many Black architects, including Marcus, have faced discrimination at your firm? Gasps echoed in the room, and Marcus's heart raced. He could feel the weight of history pressing down on them, a moment of reckoning looming. Jake's face paled, and he stammered slightly, searching for words that would not betray him. I don't know what you're implying, he said, but the crowd was no longer on his side. Misinformation and bias have no place in our industry, the young architect pressed on. As someone who has experienced this firsthand, I demand accountability. How do we ensure that your firm is a safe environment for Black architects moving forward? The room erupted into murmurs, the audience shifting their focus from Marcus to Jake, demanding answers. The moderator attempted to regain control, but it was clear that the tide had turned. Jake's polished facade began to crumble as he realized the implications of the question. With mounting pressure, Jake stood up, his hands trembling slightly. I believe in fairness and respect for all architects, regardless of their background. But I also acknowledge that I have made mistakes, he said, his voice faltering. I need to take responsibility for my actions. The crowd erupted into applause, and Marcus felt a wave of vindication wash over him. Jake's resignation from his position was a foregone conclusion, and as he looked around the room, he saw hope in the eyes of the aspiring architects who had witnessed this moment. Days later, Marcus received a phone call that would change the course of his career. A prestigious firm dedicated to diversity wanted to offer him a partnership. As he stood in front of a new project, surveying the plans with a sense of pride and fulfillment, he couldn't help but reflect on how far he had come. He had not only succeeded in his own right, but had paved the way for future generations of architects who would no longer have to fight the same battles he had faced. With a renewed sense of purpose, Marcus knew that he was ready to design a future where everyone's voice mattered.